Welcome back to The Dish with Chase and Ben. I am Chaz.
And I'm Glenn.
How's everybody doing today?
I'm very hot.
I'd say you're average.
Thanks, babe. Good 6 out of 10. I'm very warm today. It's not even the warmest it's been this summer, but I'm just really warm. So warm that, what was it, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, I chopped off all my hair. I'm really happy about it. It makes me feel good. I like having no hair. I have a little bit of hair. I like the buzz cut more this time compared to like shaving down to the bone.
Yeah.
Like the buzz. Buzz.
You have light hair.
I have very light hair, so I can like grow it out a little bit more and it still looks good. And you can see all my tats, bro.
Your tattoo.
Tatuaje. Chad, we had a proper Sunday today. We hung out.
That's true.
We went to the gym. We thought about our chests.
We did think about our chest a lot today.
Which was uncomfortable, and I'm already sore, which is going to be cool, but I'm doing legs tomorrow, so it's okay.
It's going to be fantastic.
I'm excited. I swear I had something I wanted to ask you, and now I can't remember. It's gone forever. Y'all, we're talking about my favorite movie in the entire world today, and I've been very excited about this. I usually watch it every year, at least once a year, and I got to watch it a little early this year. And this movie is called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And this is the American version, not the Swedish version. I like the American version much more.
My mom would disagree with you.
I understand that, and that's fine.
She's a purist.
That's
I'm
fine.
just kidding. I don't know.
I just don't think enough money was behind the Swedish films, but they got all 3 books made into Swedish films.
Yeah.
So sometimes I want to watch the Swedish films again. I think I've seen them once or twice a piece. But I just really, really like the American film.
American.
It came out in 2011. So I watched it the year after it came out. Because I remember I was really into it, and then I watched it while I was on the road, and then it became my obsession, and then I read all of the books immediately after it. It was so good. I loved it. Came out in 2011. It's a very long 2 hours and 38 minutes. That movie is like 2 movies in one. It's crazy. You think it finishes, and then there's an entire 40 minutes still after it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And at the time of recording this podcast, it is streaming on Max. I also own it in standard definition. I also own it in Blu-ray. I also own it in DVD. Do you own it at all, Chadwick?
No.
I was going to say I forced Chase to watch this movie, but I don't think I forced him. He's seen it now twice with me. We watched it one year on my birthday because I usually like to watch it on my birthday. And then he watched it again. It's a really good movie.
Mind it. Yeah, I don't mind it at all.
It is very graphic in many different ways. There's a lot of crazy stuff, and we're going to be getting into it. Mm-hmm. What were your first thoughts when you saw the movie?
I don't like rape scenes.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that. So,
this movie's
chock
chock full of them.
I can watch a lot of really, really disturbing things, but that's a hard thing for me. But all in all, I mean, the movie was great. It was a good movie. It was well cast. Christopher Plummer is in it, so it's obviously a great movie. But
yeah.
And Victor Maitland.
I was going to say Victor Maitland's in it. Stellan Skarsgård.
Yeah.
Rooney Mara. Daniel Craig.
Craig.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people in there that's
Jenny!
really good. Yeah,
Jenny's
Jenny's in it from Forrest Gump. I don't know that lady's name. She's also in House of Cards.
I think it's a foreign name, isn't it?
I have no idea. I couldn't even guess, honestly.
I want to rewatch House of Cards. Holy
it's a
cow.
good show. Yeah.
But
no, I like the movie. It's good. It's well made.
Mm-hmm. It's directed by David Fincher, and it's like a very stereotypical David Fincher movie, and that's one of the reasons why I love it so much.
Yeah, it's got a lot of his hints to it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I like it. It's a good movie. Yeah.
Ugh,
why do you think you like it so much?
I don't know. I think I just hyper fixated on it the first time I saw it because I saw it while I was on the road, like we said, and I was just so about it. I thought Lisbeth was such a badass. I thought it was a really well-made movie. I loved all the music in it. I thought it was so interesting. It grabbed my attention. And then the books are some of my favorite books. I've read all of the books once, and I've listened to them on audiobook 4 or 5 times. I really like the guy who reads them on Audible. His name is Simon Vance. Any book that's read by Simon Vance, I will listen to. And I have done. He reads the Dune books for Audible, which I really like. And he's read a couple other ones that I've listened to. because on Audible you can just click the narrator and it'll show you all the things that he's narrated, which is awesome.
That is a good feature.
He's a great reader. But yeah, I really enjoy the story. I think it's very well written. It's pretty dry, but it really grips me a lot. And it's funny because the first movie was so good, and then I really enjoyed it. It was not very critically acclaimed. Like, it did not do well at the box office. It did not do well for awards. Like, it really didn't do that well. So Sony basically just waited out Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara's contracts, and then tried to make a movie based on a book that was a spin-off of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo books. It's called The Girl in the Spider's Web. It has the same characters but different actors, and that movie also did not do well.
Yeah.
So it was just like people don't love this movie as much as they thought, so they just stopped making them, which is really sad because I really enjoy them a lot. Oh, they're so good. But we can get into the fun facts. I'm being selfish and I'm taking the reins for this one.
We should do the synopsis first.
We should probably do the synopsis first. I'm very excited about this episode. I love talking about this movie. I know so much about it. So I'm being very selfish and forcing my opinions onto this. So let's go over the synopsis. So the synopsis of this movie is as follows. Journalist Mikhail Blomkvist is aided in his search for a woman who has been missing for 40 years by a young computer hacker, Lisbeth Salander. In the movie, Lisbeth Salander is played by Rooney Mara, and Mikhail Blomkvist is played by none other than Daniel Craig. Some fun facts about this movie. Almost all of the piercings that Lisbeth Salander has, she has her lip pierced, her nostril pierced, septum, eyebrow. She has a ton of piercings in her ears, in her face, all over her body. She got almost all of them professionally done, like the day after she accepted the role. So she got them all done because she saw them as a part of her costume, and she does a couple nude scenes, and she felt like they should be like a part of the costume. And that way, when she was completely nude, she didn't feel naked because she had these things that weren't a part of her. Right when they started making the movie and she like accepted the role, she went and got pierced and then cut all of her hair off into the hairstyle that she has in the movie. So it was like very, very quickly that she became what's going on there?
For it to tank in the movie theater.
I know, but I mean, she did, and that's the thing. She kept making movies after it. It didn't really ruin anyone's career.
No, I know.
Everyone very
successfully. She had to get pierced and cut all of her hair off for the.
Yeah, which is funny. By the end of it, one of the many changes she did, they actually bleached her eyebrows off. Not off, they were still there, but they were very, very, very light blonde, so you can't really see them, because they were going to just shave them off, but she has really dark hair. So they're like, one, they might not grow back after shaving them for a year, and two, we're going to have to shave them every 2 days to like make sure they're gone. Right. So they bleached them out, and then by the end of the movie, she had to bleach them back for like press and stuff, and she plays another character in the movie. It's a long story. And she has eyebrows, and she like hated it. She was like, this is how I see myself now, and I don't want eyebrows anymore. So she really kind of leaned into all of the unnecessary changes she made for herself.
That's wild.
It is crazy. Stellan Skarsgård remarked that this was the first time in 20 years that he was able to sleep in his own bed while shooting a movie, since it was filmed in his hometown of Stockholm. The movie takes place in Sweden and northern Sweden, and that's really funny that he was just like, yeah, like I don't need to stay at a hotel. I'm just like, gonna go home.
Gonna head back.
Yeah.
Have dinner with my family.
Dude, that'd be super nice. He probably made
really
a good
nice.
chunk of change off this movie too, which is really cool.
That's why a lot of celebrities moved to California.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. A lot of drag queens moved to California as well.
I said celebrities.
And that's why I said drag queens.
I'm just kidding.
You better calm down.
I said real famous people. Yeah. Professional people.
RuPaul Charles is very famous.
RuPaul.
Okay? RuPaul.
Red Bull.
Red Bull. I could use Red Bull right now. I am so tired. The film was released on December 20th, exactly when the novel begins in chapter 1. For the chapters, I think they do chapters in the book, but they'll be like chapter 1, December 20th to December 22nd.
I see.
And I really like that.
That is cool.
When the casting started, the role of Lisbeth Salander was originally offered to Natalie Portman, but she declined due to exhaustion. I don't know what she was working on around that time.
This sounds exhausting.
I mean, it is kind of an exhausting movie. I think she had just done Black Swan around that time, maybe.
Perhaps.
Which is another very heavy psychological movie. Yeah, I would. What did she do around 2010? She declined due to exhaustion. Scarlett Johansson was also considered, and although her audition was great, director David Fincher considered her too sexy and feared that all of the media attention would focus on her nude scenes. It was Black Swan, yeah. So she had just done Black Swan, so she's probably super tuckered out.
She did a good job.
All media attention. I've never seen that movie, and I want to
gnarly.
so badly.
Yeah, it's
because Mila
disturbing.
Kunis is in it too,
Yeah.
who I find an incredible actor.
Yeah, it's a good one.
All the media attention would focus on her nude scenes, which indeed happened 2 years later with Johansson's Under the Skin in 2013. Jennifer Lawrence was also considered, but she was rejected for being too tall. Finally, Rooney Mara was cast. I listened to an interview with Rooney Mara, and she had to fight David Fincher for this role because the only time they had worked together before this was the movie called The Social Network. Rooney Mara is in it for about 3 seconds. She plays this Harvard girl who is brown hair, really cute, the girlfriend of Mark Zuckerberg in the beginning of the movie. And she's just kind of your average, everyday, college girl. And then she wants to play this super dark, edgy, androgynous computer hacker. And David Fincher was like, no, I'm not doing it. And then she kept fighting, and she eventually got cast. Thank God, because she does an incredible job. Many Swedish critics questioned the choice to have many of the cast members speak in a Swedish accent. Most criticism was pointed to Rooney Mara's accent that many critics heard as Russian or Dutch and not Swedish at all. The man, Daniel Craig, admitted in an interview that he thought this was stupid and therefore used his real voice. Everyone else is trying to speak in a Swedish accent besides Daniel Craig. He's just English, which is so funny.
Craig.
Because Daniel Craig does really good accent work. He has that wild accent in Knives Out and Glass Onion.
I hate that accent. I hate it. It's a terrible accent. It's terrible.
It's well done, though. It's annoying. It's hard to hear it come out of his mouth, but it's well done.
Well,
I don't know. Is that Louisiana or Georgia?
I think it's Louisiana. I don't know though. I don't know. It's
very off-putting.
It's over the top.
I mean, both of those movies are over the top.
I understand, but it's just a lot.
It is a lot. It's tough to hear it come out of his mouth for sure. But yeah, let's just keep on rocking and get into part 1 here. This movie, he's just sitting down over there. He's taking a seat. He's having a time over there. He's just looking outside. Maybe I can go outside sometime.
Yeah.
When he's literally been outside, 4 or 5 times today?
I don't know.
Okie doke. Part 1. Journalist Mikael Blomqvist from Millennium Magazine loses a libel case against corrupt businessman Hans Erik Wennerström in Stockholm. So kind of setting up the scene, it starts with him being convicted, and it's all right, well, we meet him. He wrote this story. He got all of his information from a source he thought he could trust. It was all proved completely false in court. Sued him for libel. He has to pay, I think, 150,000 Swedish kroner. And in the book, he goes to jail for 90 days, but in the movie, he does not go to jail. It's just all right, you just lost all of your life savings, and this is what you have to do.
That's also I would say too, from an outside point of view, the most important thing I think is that he lost his credibility as a journalist.
100%.
Which is a huge deal. So.
Very true. Yeah. And that's the thing. So he leaves the courthouse and goes right to the magazine where he works, Millennium's offices, and everyone just kind of looks at him, and he goes to the co-editor and the CEO. Her name is Erica Berger. He just walks up to her and he's like, so I'm done. My career's kind of over, so I'm just going to F off for a second. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. So they kind of just deal with that. He ends up writing a press release saying that he's leaving the magazine to try to keep the magazine intact and let them survive outside of him, being convicted of libel, which is literally the worst thing you can do as a journalist. At the same time, we get introduced to Lisbeth Salander, who is this tiny little androgynous girl. We find out that she works for Milton Security, which is a private security firm, and she does a background check on Mikael because this lawyer, Dirk Frode, hires
Victor Maitland.
Victor Maitland hires Milton Security to do this background check because he works for businessman, basically. We don't really know what's going on, but they basically just hire Milton to do a background check on Mikhail. Lisbeth does it, and the way Lisbeth does a lot of her background checks is she's a computer hacker, and she basically gets way more information than she probably should be able to, and is just really great at her job because she illegally accesses people's computers and finds that stuff out. So after she kind of like finds out everything about Mikhail, submits her report, she sees all this nonsense going on with Wennerstrom, and she's like, well, I'm bored. I'm in between jobs. I'm going to start looking into his, background as well. So she's like doing research about him on the side. And then as the movie progresses, we basically figure out that the lawyer hired Milton Security to do a background check on Mikhail because the lawyer's boss, Henrik Vanger, wants to hire Mikhail Blomqvist to, in the public eye, write a memoir of Henrik's life. But in reality, Henrik had a niece 40 years ago that he was very close to, and she ends up disappearing off like their family island one day, and it has been an unsolved case ever since, and it's been driving him crazy. One of the things that drives him crazy is he keeps getting these pressed flowers sent to him by who he presumes is his niece's killer, because he was the only person who knew that she would give him these flowers every year for his birthday. And he's still getting them. So he's like, okay, whoever killed her obviously knew that she gave me those flowers, and now this person's trying to like drive me insane. So basically, Henrik convinces Mikhail to come up to northern Sweden. He kind of lays out the whole plan, and he's like, listen, you're in this really awkward point in your career. You are, you're kind of at a standstill, and I really think you're a great journalist. I want you to look into this for me. I want you to like give it a year. I want you to really focus on this. If at the end of the year you don't figure it out, that's fine. We've tried everything we could. If you do figure it out, I will basically, while he's working him for a year, he doubles his salary. If he finds who killed his niece, he would quadruple it, and he would give him, at the end of the year, Henrik Vanger would give Mikhail basically Hans Erik Wennerstrom. He's like, I followed his career since day one. I know how you can take him down. I have that information. I will give that to you if you do this for me for a year, whether you find it or not, but I will give this information to you. So that's kind of like the end thing where he's like, you know what? I have to do this. I have to get back at Wennerstrom. I'm going to just basically move up to northern Sweden and try to write this memoir and figure out who killed this girl. So that is kind of the overarching premise of the beginning of the movie. A question kind of based on that. What similar risks do journalists and computer hackers take in finding out the truth or finding out what they need to find out? What do you think?
Okay, so risks, I would say the first is, of course, the people that you expose. Mm-hmm. So, of course, because what we were talking about a minute ago, was that typically if you're a journalist or a hacker, you're going after high-profile people. Mm-hmm. So you're going after people that are probably powerful, probably more powerful than you are, really, realistically. Yeah. So, like, there's always that risk of backlash from that. There's also the risk of what happened to him, where your information could be wrong. Mm-hmm. So there's also the legal risk of being a journalist, and of course there's a huge legal risk of being a hacker, of course, obviously. And I think too, with those type of careers, you have the potential to like ruin somebody's life. So like those, I would say that it would be easy to underestimate like how spiteful people could get if they like really feel backed into a corner. So I think that there's a huge risk in both.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
I agree with that. And I do think, kind of like, backing the person into a corner, like, especially with how, like, the people that Lisbeth targets and the people that a lot of journalists will target, a lot of times they're not targeting somebody for doing a great job. They're targeting someone because there's something wrong, and they think they're so like backed up and covered, and they're so set in stone and they're good to go. and a journalist can just like go in, ask the right questions, and then basically open up wide every secret they've ever kept and told. Very similar to a hacker, I think. I think a lot of people think that their own machines, their own computers, their own devices are like, oh, these are mine. These are my private things. Like, it's not that hard to get information out of something that doesn't have loyalty to you.
Right. Of course,
Like, this is just, it's a couple of locks. You get through those, and then you have access to everything. And that is what makes, Lisbeth so successful at her job, because she knows how to work around those things. And I think, it is, a physical and financial risk every time you do that.
Right.
Obviously, as we see in the movie, because it wipes out his savings. Alrighty, and on to part 2. We're starting to get into the meat and potatoes of this thing. I have notes for everything, but now I'm just like spouting off the movie from memory, so I'm trying to see where it starts and where it ends. Okay, cool. So pretty early on in the movie, we realize that Lisbeth Salander is actually a ward of the state. She's 24 or 26, I believe, and she has a legal guardian. His name is Holger Palmgren, and you really find out a lot of this in the book, but he's basically like, he becomes her guardian and quickly realizes there is not a reason for me to be her guardian. Like, she's good. Like, she is mentally there. She's emotionally there. She very frequently lashes out against authority. She had a really like troubled past that she kind of brings to light a little bit further down in the movie. But he is her legal guardian, and he ends up trying to like get her out of that guardianship, basically. But while he's doing that, he ends up suffering a really severe stroke. And because Lisbeth is still in the system, she gets assigned a new guardian who is literally the exact opposite of Holger Palmgren. His name is Niels Bjurman, who's a lawyer, and he becomes the guardian for Lisbeth. And he takes advantage of his position. He ends up basically reversing everything that Holger set up for Lisbeth. And he's like, listen, like, I'm in charge of your money. I'm in charge of everything in your life. I will give you a monthly allowance for you to buy food. And like, that's it. Anything else, you have to let me know what you're spending money on. If you get any other money, you have to let me know. If you're not telling me something, I'm going to assume that, the extra money is going to drugs or liquor. I can send you to an institution at a heartbeat. Like, you have to now live in my rules and my house, not physically his house, but like his rules. And obviously Lisbeth is not the most pumped about that. She kind of has to play along because there's nothing else she can do in this situation. And one thing leads to another. I'm going to kind of glaze over this a little bit because it is a very intense part of the movie. And if you are watching this movie, I would suggest looking at the rating and realizing why it's rated that, and know that if it says it's graphic, it is extremely graphic. But he abuses her, takes advantage of her, and ends up it happens. She gets the money that she needs, and she's like, all right, well, I need to obviously get back at him. Who's going to believe me? I have to catch him in the act. So she ends up getting, she gets herself in this situation again. It goes way worse than she assumed, and she does end up getting raped by him for about 6 hours. She gets home, and she just kind of has to lick her wounds and try to heal as best she can. But Lisbeth being Lisbeth, when she went there the second time to try to get him caught, she basically kept a hidden camera on her, which caught the entire ordeal. So she ends up tying him up. She ends up tattooing all over his entire torso, I am a rapist, a sadistic pig, a liar, and has the video of him doing this. So she ends up telling him, you have to get me out of this guardianship. You have to basically lie, say I'm doing everything incredibly, get me out of the guardianship, and then you'll never hear from me again. But if you try to tell anyone this happened, I'm sending the video to the police. If you try to basically weasel your way out of any of this, I'm sending this video to the police. And then if you ever try to have a romantic relationship with anyone else ever again, I will kill you. So she got her revenge, unfortunately at great expense to her. But it just kind of showed the prowess of Lisbeth and how she handles things. So she goes through this entire ordeal. At the same time, Mikhail is up in the North Pole playing journalist, and he's going through, and he basically gets all of the research material that Henrik was doing about his niece and trying to figure out how she disappeared or how she was killed or what happened. And he's just going through all of this information, and he's having such a hard time with it. He's asking around. The family does not want to talk to him about this because they're either over it or they don't think a journalist should be poking in their affairs. And he's just really having a hard time trying to find out all this information. And he's just taking these slow steps. And he is a great journalist, and he ends up finally, by sheer chance, Mikhail's daughter visits him at the cabin that he's staying in. She sees a bit of evidence that Mikhail had out that he originally thought was phone numbers for a list of people, just a really random piece. And she's like, oh, there's Bible quotes that all those numbers are according to book, chapter, and verse of Bible quotes. So oh, be nice to the Catholics with whatever you're writing. And he's like, Catholics, what do you mean? So he figures out that they're Bible quotes, and he just starts realizing, he's like, crap, I might actually be onto something. I might be finding out a lot of information here. I need assistance with this. I am having a really hard time figuring this out. I need a research assistant. So he ends up going to the lawyer and saying, hey, I need a research assistant. Can you authorize that? He's like, oh yeah, sure. Do you have one in mind? Cause I can just have the person who wrote the background check on you do it. And he's like, what do you mean background check? He finds out that he got a background check on him, reads the background check, realizes that half the stuff in there is from his personal computer and no one should have access to that. So he ends up confronting Lisbeth after she just went through this ordeal. Is like, listen, I could be mad at you, but I can really use your help on this, and ends up hiring her to help him catch this killer of women, this person who is, possibly killed possibly killed, what's her name? Harriet, the niece. Basically just loops her in, gives her all of the information that he has, and she takes it and runs. She does her thing. She finds out about all of these murders that were basically performed based on the Bible quotes that she had listed, that Harriet had listed in a diary. So they're really piecing a lot of this together, and they're like, well, did I touch your foot?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Weirdo.
I'm sorry. I'm talking about
you pervert?
No. So they start teaming up, and I think Mikhail is really strong with his interpersonal skills. He does a great job at that. And then Lisbeth is just like, all right, well, you do that. I'm just going to find cold hard facts and just go with that. And they kind of team up, and they really start finding out a lot of information. And they're really kind of getting to the point where they can basically pin all of these murders on a member of the Vanger family, Gottfried, who is actually Harriet's dad. So they pin it on Harriet's dad. They're still researching all this. They're going through, and they get to a point where there's another murder after Gottfried was killed. Well, maybe it's not Gottfried. Maybe he didn't do any of it. But then they end up actually figuring out that it is Gottfried and his son, Martin, who was Harriet's brother. So they're like, okay, we've basically figured this out. We need to try to get Martin to confess because it has to be him. There's no other way. He was here. He lied about what he was doing. He has to be the one. To be continued in a second. But yeah, I kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you think Mikhail and Lisbeth's strengths and weaknesses compare to each other, and how do you think they help each other out? How do you think they work so well together, in your opinion?
Well, they have different strengths that are completely different from each other's, which of course would help out because then you get the full picture. First is, of course, Daniel Craig's character is a journalist, and he's ambitious and social. And what I would say to answer this question the best, in my opinion, is you'd be very people store a lot of their own personal information on their computers. There's a lot that you can learn from a person from their computer. But that depends on the person, though. You could learn nothing about somebody from their computer if they're
was
old
gonna
enough
say.
and they don't do anything, or they don't
Well,
have a
yeah.
computer.
You don't have a computer.
Or even if they
Yeah.
did, like, I don't even do, like, there's nothing I can really, I don't put anything, I don't use my computer to its full capability.
Yeah.
So,
Same.
like, you would literally not know a thing about me other than, like, that I like playing games and, like,
Yeah.
I, look at, like, random websites every so often. It's, like, not anything crazy, right? Like, but depending on who you're going after, let's say, like, they're a business person, like, they're somebody that's, like, really famous, somebody like that, then you're going to get a lot of information from them. I do think no matter what, though, you would get information from people the old-fashioned way, talking to friends, family members, acquaintances, just like a detective would, making the right connections, following up with people, doing your own research, looking at news headlines. You're doing grunt work.
Yeah.
You're doing grunt work. But, like I said, like, over time, you would hear a lot more. And it doesn't, like, a computer never replaces a human interaction. Like,
Yeah.
humans can tell you how a person made them feel when they met them, how they acted when they were doing something. Oh, he just didn't seem right at the party, or he just didn't seem, he kind of
He
lost
seemed
his
off.
cool.
Yeah.
Like, a computer couldn't tell you that, right? Like, so, like, there's a lot of things in an investigation that would be very critical to know from a human being,
Yeah.
right? Of course, like I said, the computer is going to definitely give you valuable information, but it's more of like a risk. Like you're risking it. You're doing something illegal, and you might not get that much information from them.
Yeah.
So, like, I would say, because they can do different things together, it makes them a strong entity. But I don't. But separately, I don't know if either of them could solve the disappearance on their own.
Yeah.
I think they would definitely need each other. That's what I would say.
And that I do really like how it's kind of like the old school and the new school way. Like, Mikhail is like an old school journalist. Like, his way of doing his job was literally just going around talking to people, making those connections. And, like, he is a good journalist, and he is a good, somewhat like private investigator, because you kind of have to be at that point in that job. But, like, there's only so much that he can come up with by himself. And that's why I think having Lisbeth teaming up with him, being able to see and access what other people can't see and access, and having someone, that basically can just get you anything you want. He can go on his hunches, figure out if it's a hunch or it's an actual lead with her information, and just go from there. And they are a lot more successful together, because it takes so much more than just like asking around and hitting the streets and chatting, like it's just, I think exactly what you said. You can get a lot of information out of somebody's device, because at least nowadays.
But even in the movie, like, a lot of the grunt work was in the library.
Yeah, and that's
So
the thing
like,
too. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like one of those things. Most of the main work, like at the end, was like in a library.
Yeah, there's.
So it's like
there's a scene where basically Mikhail tells Lisbeth to go to the archives of the Vanger Industries and basically try to see if there's any connections with Vanger Industry and the towns where these women were killed. And it's funny because, kind of based on what you said, Mikhail goes to the lawyer and he's like, well, we want to talk about this. We need to figure out this stuff. We need to talk to somebody. He's like, oh no, like, there's nothing, like, you don't need access to that. Like, that's, secret for a reason. Like, we're just going to keep that be, like, you don't need that. Like, that's too much. And Martin ends up being like, if he needs access to it, he should have what he needs. Like, what do we have to hide? Him, thinking he's so removed from this. He's
egotistical.
Yeah, he's like, oh, there's no way they're going to be able to catch me. And the lawyer ended up, like, Martin goes like, what do we have to hide? There's nothing we have to hide. Like, we're a family-owned business. There's nothing we have, like, what do we have to hide? And the lawyer just goes, well, after 150 years of business, we probably have a lot to hide. Yeah. So we're not doing that. Yeah. So he ends up, they get access, and Lisbeth, I mean, as far as computing can go in person, she's pulling up all these records. She's pulling up old news clippings. She's doing all of this grunt work that I don't even think Mikhail would he does a little bit. Like he goes to the newspaper's headquarters to find like photos that weren't published to see if there's like negatives and stuff. But like, I really think Lisbeth's tenacity of research kind of surpasses Mikhail. So he's like, well, what if there's something linking this? And Lisbeth's like, okay, cool. I'll go figure it out. Like, I'll go do it. I think she's a lot more like, you know, analytical, where he is more of like a detective and hunches and kind of goes with that.
Yeah.
You know? No, I agree. I agree with what you said. I think that's great.
Okay.
Part 3 of the movie, the climax, the last like hour and a half of the movie. It's wild. So they basically, both Mikhail and Lisbeth kind of separately come up with the answer that Martin has to be involved when they're separated. Mikhail is at home. He's going through these photos. He realizes that Martin is basically lying about where he was on the day, and Harriet like saw him across the street on the day she disappeared and like freaked out and left. Like there's photographic evidence of that. So he's like, Martin has to be involved. Martin had to have killed her. Like Godfried, their dad, was dead at that time. Like there's no way that it was Godfried. It has to be Martin. Whereas Lisbeth finds this out at the archives. She's going through in the library and she finds out like, wait a second, Martin was with Godfried in all of these. So Godfried was probably, no, you touched my foot. Godfried was probably teaching Martin how to kill these women. So it has to be Martin. So they both kind of realize at the same time in different places. So Mikhail, being on the island, is like, well, I'm going to go confront him. I'm just going to go up to his house, figure this out. So he goes up to the house pretty late at night. Martin's not there. So he starts like snooping around. He just opens the door. There's a door open. He just goes right in, walks in, doesn't really find anything. But then Martin comes home. So he's like, crap, I have to get out of here. He tries to run away. He falls. Martin hears him and he's like, all right, come back in. Like, let's chat. I don't know what you're doing out here, but like, come on in. You know, Henrik wanted me to ask you something. Come on in. I'll make you a drink. And Mikhail's like, okay, well, let's go back in. Like, I have to play this off. I have to be polite. I have to be nice. I have to like kind of make it look like nothing's going on. When in reality, he should have just left, which is hilarious because Martin even says that. He's like, you knew I was a killer. You knew this was happening and you didn't want to seem presumptuous. You didn't want to seem rude. So you walked right back in. And basically Martin kidnaps, to an extent, Mikhail, brings him down to his basement where there's this like secret room, and it ends up being like a torture chamber. He has this torture chamber in his basement where he has been kidnapping and killing women for the past 40 years, like almost nonstop, like an unbelievable amount of people. So he kidnaps Mikhail, like ties him up, and he's about to like murder him too. But at the same time, Lisbeth came to this realization, juts home, realizes that Mikhail is not at their cabin anymore, realizes, oh crap, like he had to have gone up to Martin. So she gets there in the nick of time. Martin is about to kill Mikhail. Lisbeth beats the ever-living goodness out of him with a really quick smack of a golf club, incapacitates Martin for like a second. He gets up and runs off very quickly.
Yeah.
She's like more concerned about Mikhail, trying to get him up, trying to fix him up. Lisbeth ends up going after Martin. There's a chase. She is on her motorcycle. He is in a very nice Range Rover. She ends up chasing after him. Martin loses control of his car, dies in a fiery car crash. It's like, well, this happened. Martin had to have been the killer. While Martin was torturing Mikhail, he ends up saying, like, you know, you killed your sister. Why would you kill your sister after killing all these women? And Martin basically is like, listen, I killed everybody. I didn't kill my sister. You got it wrong. You're useless. You were supposed to figure this out. You weren't supposed to find out that I was doing this. This is completely unrelated. So Mikhail's like, well, shit. Like, we just went through all of this, and now he's not the killer? Like, what are we supposed to do? So they're trying to, like, figure it out, and they're trying to put, like, 2 and 2 together. I kind of skipped over something. This is so annoying. This is what happens when I don't follow my notes and I'm just like talking off the top of my head. About halfway through the movie, there is a cousin of Harriet's, Anita, that Mikhail wants to talk to. He finds out she's living in London. So he goes to London and basically tries to interview her about the whole situation and is like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know. Harriet was such a weirdo. She never talked to anybody. I wasn't really close to her. She was just really distant and like basically tried to get information out of Anita. And Anita was like, sorry, I can't help you. There's nothing I can know. So then all of this happens. They find out Martin isn't the murderer. So then he's like, well, if she wasn't killed, like at this point, there's no body. There's kind of a motive, but not really. Like, what is going on? Maybe she's not dead. Who could be one of the only people that could lead us to her? Like, how are we supposed to figure this out? So they end up going back to Anita. Elizabeth gets help from some other hackers, and they basically like bug Anita's house. And then Mikhail goes up to Anita, and he's like, hey, did anyone tell you like your cousin just died? Martin like died in a car crash. There's going to be a funeral at Hedeby Island, the island that they're all staying on. She's like, I actually don't care. I don't care about my family. I moved down here. I'm sick of this. Like, don't like talk to me about this. Like, I'm done with this. Kind of shuts the door in his face. It's like, okay, cool. If we just told Anita that Martin died, and if Harriet is still alive, she's going to call Harriet and let her know, like, hey, your brother's dead. Everyone's dead. Like, everything's fine now. Everything's okay. Like, you can come out of hiding. So that's their grandiose idea. But after, like, Mikhail leaves the door, she just basically, Anita just, like, goes into her house, starts playing solitaire, online shopping. Like, she doesn't care at all. Like, it's just like, oh, yeah, no big deal. And they're just sitting there like, why isn't she talking to Harriet? Why isn't this happening? In a stroke of brilliance, they realize, well, she's probably not reaching out to Harriet because either Harriet's dead or Anita is Harriet. She moved away around the same time. She doesn't want to know anything about the family. No one really knows about her or her family. So Mikhail goes back to Anita and confronts her, and he's like, listen, before your brother died, he hung me up from a noose, and I have these bruises. So how about we have a conversation, Harriet? And she basically is like, well, you got me. And it is revealed that Harriet was being abused by her father and her brother, Gottfried and Martin. So Harriet ended up killing her father in a drunken stupor. She killed him. Martin kind of took over abusing her. So she told Henrik about that. Henrik sent Martin away to school. For like a year, everything is great. Harriet's like, okay, my life is totally fine. Everything is great. It leads up to the day that Harriet disappears because she sees Martin back in town. She's like, I can't do this anymore. I need to get out of here. So Harriet's cousin, Anita, ends up helping like hide her overnight. She gets her off the island. She gives her passport to leave Sweden and basically like covers up this whole exodus. And then Harriet continued sending the flowers to Henrik to try to tell him, like, I'm okay. I'm alive. I'm just not there anymore. And I want you to know that everything's okay, which just basically drove him mad. So it gets to the point where Harriet is found. Mikhail, introduces Harriet back to Henrik. Very happy ending of the story, or so you'd think. Everything gets back together. Everyone's happy. So then Henrik's like, okay, you did it. Like, you found her. Great job. Here's everything I have on Hans-Erik Wennerstrom. It turns out to be literally nothing. It's like, oh, he laundered a couple $1,000s to start his own business. Like, nothing can be done. So Mikhail's like, great. I literally almost got killed. I went through all this BS, and now there's like nothing. He has nothing to show for it. Lisbeth had no idea that he was trying to get the information about Hans-Erik Wennerstrom. So she's like, oh, I did a bunch of research about him about a year ago before I started working for you guys. Do you want me to like look into it? You were like really pissed when I hacked your computer. Would you be just as pissed if I like hacked Hans-Erik Wennerstrom's? He's like, oh, well, let's find out. So she basically finds out that Hans-Erik Wennerstrom has just been like in the gun trade, the drug trade. He's just been doing everything crooked, and that's why he's this huge businessman. He's a billionaire, yada, yada. So Mikhail writes another story and basically tries to, convict Hans-Erik Wennerstrom of all the stuff that he actually did. And this time he has serious proof. It's all from his computer. And he's just like, oh yeah, I'll just say it's like an anonymous source. Like they can't trace it back to that. There are like laws protecting sources of journalists, which I think is like cool, but also like, I mean, what if they're doing shady stuff like this? So it gets kind of wild. And then Lisbeth's like, you know what? This guy's kind of a jerk. So she ends up disguising herself, going to all these different banks. And because she hacked into Wennerstrom's like accounts and everything, she has access to all of his bank accounts. So she ends up just transferring everything over to brand new bank accounts. She pretends to be this associate of him. So basically like it looks in the public that Wennerstrom hired somebody to like empty out all of his bank accounts and hide him in other bank accounts, and they can't like extradite it and they can't get any of that. Go through all that. It's actually Elizabeth the entire time. She steals all this money. She's in a great place and she's like, cool, I don't have a guardian anymore. I'm completely financially responsible for myself. I never have to work a day in my life. Happy day. I'm really kind of falling for Mikhail. I just want to like live my life happy. I'm going to buy a new apartment. I'm just going to disappear from the world and just like, you know, pursue Mikhail, and I'm just going to be like happy, and I'm turning over a new leaf. Everything is great. So she ends up, you know, getting him a really nice gift. She's gonna kind of like confess her feelings to him, and like she knows he feels the same way, so it's like this is gonna be awesome, it's gonna be cool. She goes over to his house to like give him the gift and kind of like finalize how she feels, and as she's like pulling up to his house, he sees him leaving with another woman, his co-editor of the magazine, Erica Berger, and they're like hugging and laughing and kissing and stuff, and she's like, cool, like huge stab in the back. I'm done with this. She tosses the present. She's like, I'm done. Like, I'm signing off. And she just leaves, rides her motorcycle off into the snowy sunset, and the movie's done. Which is one of my favorite endings of a movie in the entire world, because I love when movies don't end happy. Everything that was supposed to happen happens, but then like no matter what, it still wasn't the ending that you thought, and I just absolutely love that. Not a question we wrote down. How do you like endings like that, movie endings like that?
It depends.
Yeah.
I think it depends. If it's like warranted, then I think it's cool. If it's not, then it makes me feel unsatisfied. That one was good. That one seemed appropriate.
Yeah.
She didn't really have any like clear intentions with him, so it's also a little strange for me for her to be that upset about it when like
I think it's because she like let him into her life.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
But no, I think that was a reasonable way for it to end. I think most of the time, like, if they can get away with it being, like, I don't want to say an unhappy ending. I'd say a realistic ending.
Yeah.
Then that's cool, too, I think. Yeah, I think that's definitely a good factor when it comes to certain types of movies, certain genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I think all of my favorite movies have, like, pretty sad endings.
Yeah.
I think it's more realistic. Not everything has a happy ending.
Sure.
Do you think it's possible to be a virtuous vigilante? And can you name a couple virtuous vigilantes if you think that's possible?
I think it's complicated. I think that if you were going after people that were objectively bad, then I could say that there could be a virtue in that. I also think that, like, sometimes, like, let's say your kid is, like, molested by a guy, and the guy, it's proven, it's 100%, and the guy somehow gets off, and then you go and you beat that guy to death. I don't really think that's that weird.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it sucks because, like, you don't want to teach people to just do that, but if there's, like, irrefutable proof of something like that, and that's just, like, I don't think that, like, you have to answer to the laws of man no matter what, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that, like, no matter, like, and I don't think that, I don't really believe in karma.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that it's not a karma. I think, like, the luck of the draw is, like, eventually you'll get yours. Even if you don't do anything wrong, you will get yours somewhere.
There is some type of cosmic balance.
Yeah. I don't think it's, like, a karma thing because, like, there's too many bad people to get away with so many things, you know?
Yeah.
And then it's like that, like, pessimist, like, oh, they'll get theirs. It's like, when? Like, in 55 years? When they die at, like, a ripe old age?
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, you know what I mean? Like,
They
it's
die
like,
at 85 because they tripped down the stairs.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, you're just as likely to get sick just as them or anything else, right?
Yeah.
Hit by a car or whatever it is. So I don't necessarily think that is the case. So I think that, like, some people, especially people that are like vicious people, tend to be narcissistic. They think that they'll never ever have to like answer to anyone and they'll always get away with it. Nah, like I think you should definitely have to answer to it, especially if it's something that's like so blatantly like wrong and disturbing. Yeah, like you should. And I do think to be honest, like certain things like what I just gave as an example, like you should have to answer to the parent. I think that's totally fine. I don't think that's weird at all. Like I think that's, I mean, you did a terrible thing. So it's like one of those things where, but like going back to that, if it's a circumstantial thing or it's subjective, if it's like I'm killing people that I think are evil, but I don't really have any proof, I'm going after people that I just don't agree with what they're doing kind of thing. Yeah. No, I don't think that there's nothing virtuous about that. And I think too that like you have to be, I think we've talked about this before. My personal opinion about virtue is you have to be capable of bad things to be virtuous. Yeah. You can't just say, it's like somebody saying that they're anti-violence, but they're not capable of violence. That's not really virtuous. You can't even inflict violence. So for you to say that you're like not, you're like a pessimist, you're not like, you know, you're non-violent. It's like, well, you're not even capable of it. Yeah. But it's more virtuous to me for someone to be like a total badass like that you could just really hurt somebody, but you choose not to. You choose not to. I think that is a very virtuous characteristic. Yeah. So I think for you have to be a dangerous person to be a virtuous person. So I think that they kind of go hand in hand. Okay. I think that, you know, like the old saying of like, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You know what I'm saying? Like you definitely want to be that instead. Yeah. So I think like, and that's just a testament to virtue. That's what that basically means. You know what I mean? Like you want to be capable, but choose peace. You don't just choose peace because you're not capable of war. Yeah. You're just weak then. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the reality. So like to me, it's like, so those people, especially in this movie, they're both dangerous individuals in their own way. I think that like it's harder to cross people like that. But like I said, they're choosing to go after people that are pretty much objectively just terrible people. And like honestly too, like I don't know if anyone would disagree other than like worse people, perhaps. You know what I'm saying? But like, so you know what I mean? So it's like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, you know, but again, like, do I support all hackers? No. Yeah. Because some hackers go after old people, like, and take all their life savings. Like, that's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, again, that's subjective. You're going for your own, like, it's for you. It's not for anybody else. Like, you know what I mean? So I think it just depends, you know, but it's complicated, of course. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would say.
No, I like a lot that you said. I think you know, you have to have the power to choose not to do the wrong thing in order for it to be virtuous. I like that. In the books, it's explained a lot more, but Lisbeth is a part of this group called the Hacker Republic, where they... Nana just crawled out from underneath the bed. It is so funny to watch her do that.
She's a big parent.
She really is. They're a part of this like group where they are, you know, kind of being as virtuous as possible. It is tough because when you're virtuous, it's kind of your own like morality or your own set of virtues that you're living off of, which might not be the same for everybody. But, you know, they oftentimes say that they're just seeking information. They don't want to like topple the system. They don't want to break the internet. They don't want to tear down society because they need society. They need the internet. They need this system in order to gain the information that they want. So they're just like, all right, we're going to take this game and we're going to take this like system that you created and we're going to learn how to get what we want out of it, which I think is really cool. And I do find that they tend to use it more virtuously. Virtuously.
You say virtuously, yeah.
They tend to use it a little bit more in that way to kind of further the common good of the common people and not just like, you know, just like again, stealing money from old people and credit card scams and stuff. Like, that's just, you're kind of the lowest of the low at that point. It's ridiculous. Excuse me. He's saying what?
He's being stubborn out there. He's in the yard.
It's probably nice outside.
Yeah.
Is it nicer?
It's okay. Yeah.
Better than it was before. Another kind of big theme about this movie is like, the system being in charge of you and stuff. The movie, unfortunately, doesn't really get into like why Lisbeth has a guardian. It's just like this unfortunate thing that was put upon her. If you want to know more about these characters, these incredibly written characters, I really suggest you read the books. At least watch the Swedish films. You get a little bit more. But, it's talked about a lot, and it's kind of one of the main, points. What is driving Lisbeth is she is just a part of this welfare system. She's been placed under guardianship for, she tries to kill her dad because her dad is actually like this huge political criminal that the Swedish government is trying to cover up. So she tries to kill him when she's like 6 or 12. She does a pretty good job, but she doesn't kill him. So she gets locked up basically to hush her up from bringing to light that the Swedish government is hiding this defector from Russia. So it is kind of like unfair that this was forced upon her. She doesn't need guardianship, but enough things happen in her life where they can be like, oh, see, she can't fend for herself. She can't do this herself. We got to put her away in the system. And it just kind of leads to the question, should there be a system that has the authority to control someone's entire life and finances purely based on the system that they created? Like, okay, I'm going to create this system. This is how we're doing things. And now I can just decide, oh, yep, you're going to be a part of the system too, because I've decided that this is not how you should be doing things. Like, do you think there should be this overarching system that can do that?
I don't think any government should tell you what you can and can't do with your own money ever, for any reason whatsoever, honestly. I think that's kind of ridiculous. But I would only say, like, to amend that, I would say, like, if you were a violent individual that had a history of violence, you were definitely somebody that, statistically speaking, you would cause more violence over time, you would hurt yourself, or you were actively institutionalized. That's a little bit different. If you're schizophrenic and you killed 3 people and like you're not getting any better, you refuse to take your medication, and like you're also in a mental hospital, someone's going to have to be in charge of your things. I wouldn't say, but it's not a controlling thing. It's like you're not capable of doing these things. So like, of course, and I certainly would not say that a government should do it. It should be like some sort of kin, someone you appointed. You know what I'm saying? Like the government or like some sort of institution be the absolute last resort. But if you're like, you did something as a child, you couldn't have been tried as an adult, then you get out after that. You don't get to have any, like after you're an adult, you don't get probation anymore or anything like that. Like that's just how it is. Yeah. You're living on your own. You have a job. You have an apartment. No, I don't think that that's right. I don't think that's just like another way for them to control somebody. And I mean, you can pretty much control everything about somebody if you control their finances. Like, really, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like the IRS garnishing your wages. It's like there's that, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing you can do about that. It's a court-ordered thing. Yeah. So to me, it's like anything you put in can get taken out at any time for any reason. Yeah. When you're in your like late 20s, 30s, 40s, you have to ask a stranger if you can like have an extra couple bucks so that you can go get an Xbox or whatever you want to get. Like, no, I'm good. I worked so hard for my money, and like it's nobody's business, really. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Also, I don't really see a point in that because your finances like are kind of irrelevant. Like if you like, not to be like this, but like if you were like an addict, for example, like if you wanted to get drugs, you'd get drugs. Yeah. You don't need money. You could sell your body. You could do like odd jobs. You could do something. You know what I'm saying? Like you could do something. People do it all the time. You know what I mean? There are poor people that are on drugs all the time. Yeah.
Arguably taking someone's money away is pushing them further into this. Yeah. Without real rehabilitation.
Yeah. It's like telling somebody that they're not allowed to kill anyone, so they're not allowed to have a gun. It's like, well, then they can pick up a knife, they can pick up a plastic bag,
or they can
literally
still
kill you with
get
their
a gun.
hands. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if they want to do something, they're gonna. So the finance thing seems a little bit like petty. It just seems like it's not really necessary, right? Like if you're you're an adult, like you're not, So I just thought that was, and again, like case in point, like this man like controlled her because he was in charge of her
Yeah.
finances and like made her do and perform a lot of explicit things like that. Like if this never like this wasn't a system in place, this would never have occurred.
Never would
you know what I'm
have,
saying?
yeah.
So like, and I'm sure that does occur. You know what I'm saying?
1,000%.
So that's a thing that I'm completely against that.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I agree with that. I think, and that's the toughest thing because, like, you know, no one has all the answers, but I think there are a lot of systems in the world, specifically in America, but all over the world, that really need revamping, really need like research done and to figure it out. And there needs to be like a lot less bias with a lot of these systems.
Yeah.
Like rehabilitation for like, you know, a lot of addicts. Like I am a person who sees addiction as more of a disease than a choice. You're making choices, but there is like a mental portion of it. And like, you know, sometimes there are people that like left to their own devices. Yeah, they are going to unfortunately make a lot of bad choices. And there needs to be something that can be helpful to not like take everything away from the person and like, oh, I'm making these choices for them and I'm just going to fix them. There needs to be rehabilitation so people can be their own people again. You know, I'm very blessed to know a lot of people that have really turned their lives around, and I see them as very strong people and very, you know, very dedicated people in order to do that. But there are also a lot of other people there that cannot do it on their own and do need a lot of help with that. And I think whether it be mental illness, addiction, a lot of crimes, unless you're just like a cold-hearted bastard, like there are ways that you can be rehabilitated out of a lot of these things. And I think that's where a lot of the focus should go to, not how big your prison is and how many inmates you can keep at one time. It should be more focused on how many people are you actually helping. I think the American justice system, like throwing somebody in jail every time they do something wrong, they're going to get out and then they're going to do it again.
Yeah, it's a revolving door.
It is. And you don't want to just keep doing that. That's costing people money. That's costing these people their lives. There should be so much more development in the true rehabilitation, which I think in this movie, Holger Palmgren, her first guardian, was like, listen, like this is not right. She's doing well. She's making these steps. He helped her find a foster family that she lived with. He helped her get a job. Like she was doing great to an extent. She was still like cold-hearted and like didn't want to talk to people, and that's fine. That's just her personality. But like I think it takes people like that with a true dedication and an unbiased want to just help people be better people, and not in it for the money, not in it for the insurance, not in it for the system. It's just almost a lack of system and just more people just truly wanting to help be able to do that. I think that's what should be in place of that. But again, anytime you try to introduce that idea to the human condition, selfishness is going to take over and it's always going to win. And you know, you try to get as close to that as you can, and that's all we can do.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I'm saying. But all in all, incredible movie. Best movie that's ever been made, I think.
All right.
Probably. You would agree too? I think
everybody's
you would. Thank
entitled
you so
to their own opinion.
The correct opinion. And thank God I have the correct opinion on this, for sure. I'm still not wearing my chain. I took my chain off yesterday because I wore a different one. I forgot to put it back on. How are people going to know I'm wealthy? I'm not. So that kind of wraps up. We have one more episode coming out in 2 weeks. It's going to be kind of like our season finale. Should we divulge who our special guest is? We're going to keep it a secret?
Secret.
Yeah. We're going to do a really fun episode. I'm really excited about it.
Before we take 2 years off.
About two and a half.
Yeah.
No, we couldn't take that.
Sabbatical.
I love doing this.
Sabbatical.
I used to hate it. Now I really enjoy it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You really kind of, you just beat it into me, I think. So thank you for that. One more episode. Our season finale is coming out next. Let us know if you watch this movie. Let us know how you feel about it. It is one of my honest to God favorite movies in the world. I'll watch it with anybody, anytime, always.
Since this is the last movie episode, though, of the season, make sure that you let us know what you want us to watch. Let us know what you want us to talk about. if you don't have a movie in mind, maybe you have a subject in mind, and we can pair it with a movie.
Yeah.
So like, just let us know what you think and what you want to listen to, so we can talk about some new material next time and come up with some really nice, deep questions for you.
We did get these really cool movies that I would really like to watch. Possessor and what was the one that you got?
Body Double?
Body Double, yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
We were watching it. It was on a couple days ago. We were watching it.
I didn't finish it though, so
It's
I'm
a
going to
tough movie to watch.
It's cool. No, it's good.
It's so excited to watch Possessor. I need to watch it. We should watch it this week.
Yeah, I'm going to finish the other one though.
Yes. Oh, so excited. All right. Well, I think that's it. Any last closing statements?
No. Thank you for listening.
Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for being patient with me, spouting off for the last hour and 7 minutes, just going wild, talking about how much I love this movie and not being able to keep a cohesive timeline. Thank you.
That's all right.
You're the real hero today.
Yeah, totally.
Y'all be safe, be cool, shave your head. It does wonders for the climate.
Don't do it.
Do it. Okay, bye.
Bye.